welcome back. Super excited moving forward. Very important when to use machine learning. So here you have business problem, for instance, in front of you, and you're trying to decide whether I'd like to create a machine learning model based on this problem or not. So let's dive right in and take a look at when to use machine learning for a specific business problem. Important to remember that machine learning not a solution for every type of problem. And that's a common thing that we think of machine learning as, well, we can apply to every business process or problem to increase our operational efficiency and so on. But that's really not the case. Most times, those things can be simply solved by running some statistical techniques, a simple technique such as running a simple regression analysis that will give you the result. So there are certain cases where robust solutions can, however, be developed without using machine learning techniques, just like I mentioned. So for instance, let me give you an example. So you don't need machine learning if you can determine a target value by using simple rule computations or predetermined steps that can be programmed without needing an additional data-driven learning. Okay, so let me explain that. So for instance, if you can solve a simple business workflow process, right, that entails certain simple steps, then you don't need machine learning. Machine learning is simply when you need to predict something based on historical data. And that's exactly when we actually use machine learning. So here's an example to further clarify and then so that you can understand. So for example, you can use machine learning in the following instances where you cannot code the rule. So you cannot create a program. Many human tasks, such as recognizing whether an email is spam or not, is a perfect simple example, cannot be adequately solved using a simple rule-based solution. In other words, you cannot classify which email would be spam or not spam, right? So you may need to create a machine learning model that will help you identify or classify whether a particular email is spam or not. Secondly, a large number of factors could also influence the answer. So when rules depend on too many factors, such as, and many of these factors, by the way, can overlap. So the rules or need to be turned or tuned very finely. In other words, it soon becomes difficult for a human to accurately code the rule. Here again, you can use machine learning to effectively solve this particular problem. So now you know when not to use machine learning and when to use it. Here's another example, okay, to further reinforce where you cannot scale. So you may have a business problem, but you cannot scale. So you might be able to manually recognize a few hundred emails and decide whether they're spam or not. Again, referring back to our spam example. However, this task becomes very, very difficult, right? Why? Because you have millions of emails across the entire network. So machine learning solutions are effective at handling large scale problems, right? So there's tip number two. You have a large scale problem, enterprise-wide problem, then machine learning is a good way to go. So here's again our basic flowchart that I initially discussed within the course agenda and the structure of the course, right? So the first aspect, of course, starting from the left, is the machine learning problem framing. So here you need to kind of understand whether you can use machine learning onto a specific business case or problem or not, right? So this gives you an idea. And if you are going to use machine learning, then of course you can formulate the problem, develop your data set, visualize, create some labels, train your data, divide your data into training sets, test sets, and then of course evaluate business goal, and then finally predict. So I hope this helps. Just wanted to cover this in depth so you understand the machine learning implementation and when exactly to use machine learning or not. So I hope this helps. Practice. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the discussion area. Be glad to help. With this, let's move to the next lesson.